Hi, Bill Vales here. Just a little to the north of our town of Littleton, Mass, is the state of New Hampshire, known as the Granite State. New Hampshire has a rich history of mining that has made significant contributions to the cultural, economic, local, regional, and national history. At one time, not that long ago, New Hampshire was the site of some of the world's largest mineral deposits of feldspar, mica, and beryl that could be found anywhere in the world. In this collection of 3 Littleton Rocks on the road shows, we traveled to the site of the Golding-Keene Feldspar Mill in Alstead, New Hampshire. At this site, some of the world's largest deposits of feldspar were crushed or reduced in preparation for transport to other facilities for further processing. Surrounding this site are literally hundreds of mines that contributed numerous minerals to the economies of the region and the economy of our nation. We are fortunate in these shows to have interviews with some of the men that worked in the mining industry in New Hampshire, and in particular at the Golding-Keene Mill and some of the surrounding mines. These men will tell you their stories of working in the mines, operating the equipment, and their participation in the many phases of the mining process that brought these minerals to the later stages of product. Let's take a look at a few of the specimens of the rocks and minerals we will be talking about in these shows. We will discuss how some of the world's largest mica deposits were used in colonial times as glass and lanterns. Mica became a critical and strategic resource for World War II, which contributed to the Allied victory. And here we see some examples of mica. Beryl is the primary source of the element beryllium. Beryl was also another very strategic resource used in the defense industry. Beryl became a key component in the development of the atomic bomb during the Manhattan Project. Beryl is used today for numerous applications, including electronics, communication, medical, and military applications, to name just a few. This example of beryl shows an example that's really leaning towards the full hexagon, 6-sided crystal shape of beryl. Feldspar is the most abundant mineral in the Earth's crust. Feldspar accounts for about 60% of all terrestrial rocks. Feldspar is an important ingredient in the manufacture of glass and porcelain products. There are numerous other uses for feldspar, including fiberglass insulation, drywall compound, abrasive cleaners, paint, the production of steel, and numerous other products and applications. There are numerous types of feldspar based on their chemical composition. Chemically, the feldspars are silicates of aluminum containing sodium, potassium, iron, calcium, or barium, or combination of these elements. Let's take a look at a few of the feldspar specimens. This specimen here is known as labradorite, and it's no surprise that it's found in Labrador, which is where this sample came from, but it's also found in other places. New Hampshire is one. And if you look at this, you can see there's a beautiful blue sheen to this, blue-green sheen. Another example of feldspar is amazonite. And a lot of this is found in the Amazon region, but again, it's also found in New Hampshire, it's out west, and many other places. And this has a beautiful green shade to it. That's amazonite. This feldspar here is known as microcline. And this microcline example was found in Moat Mountain, which is in Albany, New Hampshire. That's the neighboring town of Conway. And you can see here, this is a well-formed microcline feldspar crystal, and also in this matrix is a crystal of smoky quartz. And Moat Mountain, by the way, is known for its smoky quartz. That's called microcline feldspar. This beautiful piece of red feldspar came from Blueberry Mountain in Woburn, Massachusetts. And I have found red feldspar similar to this in places in Littleton. And this is a fairly, not so much a common, but it's fairly widespread throughout New England and other areas. This is a microcline crystal of feldspar, and the interesting thing about this crystal, and the crystal formation in this is really exquisite, in that this exhibits an attribute known as twinning. And the twinning is that the crystals grow in different directions and they interlock with one another. And this is, feldspar exhibits perhaps 7 or 8 different types of twinning. And that's always special, finding something like that. The geologic setting of New Hampshire explains the abundance of mineral resources. The minerals feldspar, mica, and beryl, and other accessory minerals such as tourmaline, and I have an example of tourmaline here. Here's a well-formed tourmaline crystal. See, six-sided, again, this is in the hexagonal system. Very well formed. And this was from Groton, New Hampshire. Groton, New Hampshire. And tourmaline and other minerals are common to the pegmatite deposits of New Hampshire. And the pegmatites, this is an example of a pegmatite here. And what a pegmatite is a rock deposit that consists of numerous minerals. And the minerals have been formed because they cool very slowly, very, very slowly, and the minerals get a chance to grow into their crystal structure. And you can see in this pegmatite, we have some mica, muscovite mica. We also have some tourmaline here. We have a lot of white feldspar, which you can see here, the various white. And we have quartz. And just to show you one other example of a pegmatite, on this pegmatite here, which also has feldspar, muscovite mica, we see up here this shade here, this is beryl growing in the pegmatite. So sit back, relax, and get ready for some geology talk. Some interesting history, and colorful interviews with some of the men that mine the nearby hills of New Hampshire. I hope you enjoy these shows, and we'll see you next time. Hi, I'm here with Henri Pletzner, and we're up here in New Hampshire. Where in New Hampshire are we?
Alstead.
We're in Alstead, New Hampshire. And Henri, we're at quite a site here. Can you describe where we are?
We're on top of Alstead Hill, about 2 miles from the store in Gilson.
And what's the significance of this area here from a mining perspective?
What is what?
What's the significance of this area here from a mining perspective?
Well, it seems that there's a lot of mineral deposits of all sorts in this area. There's several mines.
Now, have you worked up here as a miner?
I have 10 years.
What sort of jobs have you done up here?
Drilling and blasting, equipment operator, and worked a little bit around the plant, repairs and so forth.
Tell us about some of your experience drilling. That sounds like a pretty tough endeavor.
Well, we did underground drilling where we went in and drilled tunnels. You had to keep working ahead, and you would drill maybe 30 feet below and blast it out where they used to come in with pans on little rails and roll the stuff out.
How big were these drill holes that you were making?
Oh, they probably were no bigger than 2 inch at the largest.
So you would make those holes and then those would be used for blasting?
Yes.
I see. How deep in the ground would these be, Henry?
Well, we were fairly deep. You could only go 90 feet, and then you had to leave a floor or a ceiling if you were going deeper. You could only go 90 foot deep. But you didn't go that deep here. This was open pit mining here.
I see. Now when you say open pit, meaning the land is being carved out?
Yes. You strip the top burden off until you got to the ledge, and then you start drilling and blasting and processing the product.
Now, how big a crew would you have working with you?
At the last end, there was just 2 of us.
How about when it started?
Well, when it started, they had a large crew. They had at the Colony Mine, for example, they had 3 different places where they would haul the stuff up out of the hole. That was a fairly deep pit.
How deep would you say that is?
Oh, that's probably 50, 60 foot.
Okay. Now, explain again for me. You mentioned before that if you were drilling a mine, it could only be 90 feet. Can you explain that again?
The height of the face could only be 90 feet. Even if there were a ceiling, it could only be 90 feet in depth.
Okay. Okay. Now, was that a safety reason,
Yes.
or I see?
Yeah.
So that was a safety reason.
Yes.
Okay. And what years did you do mining here?
I left Golding-Keene in 1962. I was here 10 years prior, full time.
Yeah. Now, what type of materials were you mining for?
Feldspar mostly.
Okay. And what was feldspar used for?
Well, for porcelain, lap insulator, and any dishes, any pottery.
Porcelain, pottery. Now, as we look around behind us, there's a number of artifacts. There's some concrete equipment and some metal. Do you recall what this material is remnants of?
Yes.
Yeah. And what is that?
Well, the concrete is base for the gyratory crushers.
The gyratory crushers.
Cone crusher, gyratories.
Okay. Now, can you explain how that worked?
Yes, it is like a bowl, actually it's more like a funnel. A large opening at the top and narrow at the bottom. It pinches in at the bottom, and in the center there is a cone that turns. It is off center, so it has a throw. One side opens up, and of course it closes on the other side. And as the stuff falls down, it gets crushed.
I see. And what's the opening? How large is that opening?
Not very large in this operation.
Mm-hmm.
Then it went down the conveyor into the cone crushers, which ground it down even smaller. And then from there it went down into some roll crushers, which made it into powder.
It would get down to powder.
Yes.
Wow, wow.
Yes.
Now,
Like flour.
were there uses for the feldspar at different stages of size?
Not really. Not really, no.
So it was the powder that
Yeah,
you were looking for, but it had to be done incrementally in the crushing process
Right.
to get it to the
Right.
How fast did that crusher turn?
It didn't actually turn a lot when it was full. If it was running empty, sometimes it would get to turning because it was just this oil friction that it would make it turn.
Yeah. So standing here in your mind's eye and your memory, can you picture that crusher running?
Oh yes.
You can picture the crusher running and the
Picture
sounds,
crusher running, yes.
and probably lots of dust and
Yes, it was some dust, but not that bad really.
yeah, and fairly hard work, I would think.
Yes. Yes.
Did you like the work?
I did. I did.
So what else did you do in the mine?
Well, mostly, like I say, I worked in the mines, actually drilling and blasting. Then I ran equipment. We loaded our own load, and I'd haul a truck up and dump it into the crusher and go right back and get another.
Yeah. So blasting. Now I have to believe that. How long did you blast for?
Well, all the time I was here.
So you must have had some good stories to tell from blasting. Close
No,
calls?
Not really. We're out here in the woods. There's nothing really, to damage.
Yeah. Now you would drill your holes, and would sticks of dynamite be put
Right,
down those holes?
Right.
And how did you ignite that dynamite?
Well, we had electrical blasting caps.
Okay, okay. And would you sit back with a battery, or was it a plunger?
Yes, we had one of those batteries. It wasn't an electrical battery, but battery box that you pulled the handle up and pushed it down, and it made a charge that it set off the caps.
I see. Now, when you would charge an area or ready an area for charging, how do you keep track of how many charges were put in and how many went off?
Well, of course, you know how many went off, because if some missed, it wouldn't break it up like it should.
Okay, okay. Was there any concern that you had, though, of a charge that didn't go off when you went back in?
Actually, we never had them that wouldn't go off, because you had a tester that you would test. Once you got your wired up, you would test it, and if there was a break anywhere, it wouldn't go off at all.
I see. I see.
It was continuous connection.
Okay, so you're drilling, you're crushing, you're setting charges. What else did you do here?
Well, occasionally I do a little mechanical work to help if they, when they did the crush, of course, I ran the crane. Sometimes I put the pots, moved the pots around.
This area, and what I'm learning, has really a rich history that played quite a role in the development of our country, World War II, and even before that. Do you feel some sense of pride that you were a part of this?
No, it was just a living.
And that's what I expected from a New Hampshire native. Henri, I want to thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Bill Vales here, and today I'm in Alstead, New Hampshire, and I'm with Jiim Morse. Jim, thank you very much for being with us.
Okay.
Jim, are you a native New Hampshire?
Right, yep.
Okay, whereabouts are you from?
Gilson.
Gilson, New Hampshire. And can you explain where we are right now?
Well, from what I can picture, and you remember, I'm where the big jaw crusher was, way up to the top of the plant.
Okay, so we're on the, what was the name of this mine that we're at?
This actually didn't have a mine. We didn't have mine. We got stuff in mine. They had the Kidder mine down that way.
Okay.
And the colony mine and everything is in Alstead. And from Romney, there was Ruggles Mine. We used to get the material from.
I see. And you received material here and then you processed it.
Right.
Okay, and tell us about the processing.
Well, stuff that come from the mines around here would come here to the big jaw crusher.
Okay, the big jaw crusher. That sounds like quite a machine. Can you explain that?
It was a crusher, and there's a big jaws. One jaw was stationary, and the other jaws went back and forth, and they were 2 feet or more at the top, and about 3 or 4 feet deep. And you kept the jaws going within about 2 inches or 1.5 to 2 inches at the bottom. So you'd get a big rock in the top, and it would come out once in a while, but it would eventually get crushed and go down through the bottom and the conveyor.
Okay, and that machine was really behind us, roughly.
Right, somewhere on that knob right there behind us.
Okay, okay. Did you operate that?
I ran it for about a year or over a year.
What was it like operating it? Was it noisy, dusty?
Well, we weren't half as bad as what would come up from down below, the dust. But it was, you had to be careful because the stone would chip a lot, But it wasn't bad, as far as the dust went.
Yeah. How long did you do that for?
I was up here probably almost a year.
A year.
Yeah, because I remember now when I started, 54 out of high school. Probably almost 10 or 11, 12 months up here.
I see. And what type of material were you crushing?
Up here, we were crushing everything. Anything that came in on the rocks. There was a lot of dirt, and everything was in the rocks.
And what was that material used for? The final product.
Well, if there was any spar, it would continue on down, and all the other stuff was detoured out to separate down below. I don't know how they.
I see. And when you say spar, you're referring to Feldspar?
Yeah, Feldspar. Yeah.
Okay, so that was the valued material.
That's what we wanted. Yeah.
Okay. How large were the pieces of Feldspar that were brought in for your crusher?
Well, we'd get some pretty good sized rocks.
Yeah, about how big as big as a car? Or?
Well, no, not that big, but maybe say like 4 or 5 feet long. It depends on the shape of it.
Okay.
It comes off the ledge, but if it's shaped right, it'd go through the crusher right. But otherwise, you'd have to beat it up to get it to go through the crusher. But they are all big rocks. Nobody come in with a gate up on a dump truck. They always had the gate down.
I see. So you must have had some cranes here to pick that material up and place it into the crusher?
No, but just above the jaw crusher was a big dump bin where they used to dump into.
Okay.
And that had a track.
Oh, like a conveyor belt?
Conveyor symbol underneath there, and they dumped into that.
Okay.
So all you do is just push a button and make sure you time it just right so that big rock would be the only one going into the jaws. And then when you need anything, you push a button. And that's where we just feed it in there.
I see. Now, back then, did you wear ear protection?
Nah.
Eye protection?
No.
No protection?
No protection.
Okay.
Not like nowadays, sunglasses.
Yeah. Okay. What other jobs have you done in mining throughout your history?
Well, when this slowed down a little bit, I run the roll crushers for almost 4 months down below. So that was a dusty job.
Okay,
running the roll crusher.
So the roll crusher, did that take material that was smaller?
Yeah, that's what came through from up here. Well,
I see. So you had the jaw crusher back here.
Yeah, then they went through these right over there. It's a gyro, or cone crushers, if you want to call it.
Okay.
And they had 2 set up there. First one is a big one, and it was a big one. And then the next thing they installed was a smaller one. They would crush it right up pretty small.
I see. So there was a progression of crushers
Yeah.
that you would go to, each crusher producing smaller and finer material. And again, the end result that you're looking for is feldspar. Spar. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
But you know, like from this operation here, the jaws and the two cone crushers, everything went into a stockpile, and the conveyor right down there over the tunnel there.
Yeah. Now, I noticed when we came up here, a lot of the waste product probably built a mountain in itself as it was discarded down the side. So you must have seen this area change drastically just in the course of a month or two.
Well, most of the waste material was down below.
Down below.
See, everything we got continues on down.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it gets down there, it becomes waste, and they were trying all kinds of different ways to accumulate some of it and gather some of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of it they used a lot of it for golf courses and the fine stuff, because when it got down there and it was out there, it was pretty fine.
I see.
Everything was all crushed up.
I see. I see.
And it even had the mica and everything in it. So.
Yeah. I'm struck by the when we drove up here today, the sun was really blazing, and the shimmering from all the mica was spectacular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it around here on the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you, in your experience, did you ever do any mining of mica, or were you strictly feldspar?
I was mostly just like feldspar. They said, don't worry about the mica, let that go. So,
Let that go.
here, down to Kidder, I worked down there probably a couple of months with my brother. The mica was scrap, you know.
Yeah. Now, what years was the mica considered scrap?
Well, even back then when I was in, we weren't looking for mica, so we didn't worry about the mica, and that would have been 57.
Okay, so that's well after World War II, because the mica was really...
They were getting it from over across the street.
Yeah, valued during World War II. Wow. So, as you think back, standing up here, can you, in your mind's eye, do you sort of picture this as a working operation with the buildings and the crusher going? And
Well, I can remember a lot of it, but some of it's, the way the landscape is now, it just doesn't look the same at all. You know?
changed a lot.
It took about a half an hour to figure out that was the only the old road is right there. It came up around behind the crusher, the big crusher. And then it continued on down around to what they call the small crusher. But that only had pure spar.
Yeah.
That didn't get any scrap in it.
Well, Jim, this is a fantastic area, and I mean, it's a beautiful place. I'm sure you and others worked extremely hard. This must have been a difficult living.
In the winter, it was rough. It was cold up here in the winter.
So that's another question I have. You worked up here 12 months of the year?
Well, I was here when I came, and then I worked one whole winter up here. And I graduated next winter.
So you're talking sub-zero weather. I mean,
Well, it was cold, yeah. Back then, I remember
with
30,
some wind coming
30
in.
40 below zero. And in that building, there wasn't no heat.
Yeah.
So it was kind of rough in the winter, but not as bad. They had all the heat down below.
Yeah.
They would come up through the sift up through there, and we get a little, but not much.
You're clearly part of the New Hampshire mining history. Do you think of yourself in that way at all?
Yeah, my father was a smithy for the Colony Mine, and then he came down here and was a smithy at the Kidder, and then he did some for right here at the plant. And he did all the sharpening and shaping of the drill rods and all that, any repairs. And my brother was a driller for down here and up the Colony Mine and Kidder, so I didn't care for the drilling part.
Yeah.
I did that a little bit once. But
Jim, I want to ask you, In the work that you did here, of course, you're dealing a lot with explosive materials. Do you have any experiences or stories involving explosives?
Well, like I was saying, sometimes you get a rock and then it has a hole in it hasn't been blown out. You don't know if there's still dynamite in that or something. So you'd put that in the jaw crusher and then you'd stand way back and let it go. But
So you put it in the jaw crusher and let the crushing force explode it?
if there's one in there, it would go boom.
What did it do to the crusher?
Oh, it never hurt that. I don't think nobody ever had any problems with hurting the crusher because there's a lot of heavy metal in there.
I see, but a lot of fragments of rock
Well,
would.
you get a lot of pieces of rock fly around. But,
Yeah.
and then, like I was saying, we had one that wouldn't go through the jaws. So another guy said, I know how to fix that. He mud packed it, they call it, with dynamite. And then we stood outside and he set it off. And that rock went through the crusher, but it took a week to put the roof back on.
You took you took the roof off the.
Because all it was sheet metal, you know.
Yeah. What did the owner think of that situation?
He didn't know much about it, probably.
Yeah. So, I mean, that sounds like there was some spectacular explosive force there.
Well, it was, yeah. If you didn't, you didn't stand on top of it or near it anyway. I mean, they did that. But that was the only time we had to do that as far as getting the rock through the jaws. Usually you pound on it with a sledgehammer to go through after all. But when you get, like I say, when you get a rock that had a hole in it,
Yeah.
a drill hole, and maybe, especially if there was no one coming out the other side.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those you were careful about. And you'd get most of them from down here in the Kidder or something like that.
Did you have eye protection?
No, we didn't use much.
Did you have a mask for protection?
Well, they had the masks and stuff, especially driving in the gyro roll crushers. You had to have something.
Yeah. How about a hard hat?
No.
No hard hat. So, I mean, OSHA, I don't even think
I
was.
don't think they were around.
They were around at that time, so these places were.
We weren't. We didn't know anything about them.
Yeah, somewhat like a wildcat miner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's right. But if you had felt, you wore a mask, a painter's mask.
Yeah.
Especially down there.
Yeah.
And as far as eye protection.
So you must, at the end of the day, you must have just been covered with feldspar. Just completely, everything covered with feldspar.
Yeah.
Wow.
When you run roll crushers, I usually have a set of clothes for in here.
Yeah.
And then a set of clothes to go out because you didn't want to get in the car with all that
Yeah.
stuff on you. So, and they did have the coveralls, the big one, but like today, it's too hot. You just couldn't do any work with that thing on. So
Yeah.
you'd be down to your short and pants. And you'd be pretty dusty.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, Jim. Thank you again.
Yeah.